That's a bit more like it. Come on, let's see what we can do about this.
Hello there guys, and welcome to Mad Doc Minis. So in this video I'm going to take some inspiration from that film footage to make my own Rough Riders. These guys aren't really going to be Napoleonic as in the film footage, but they're going to be more colonial themed really, so they'll fit in with my Praetorian army. And yep, I'm a Praetorian fanboy. It's not going away anytime soon, so apologies for that. But I'm going to use these old Empire Outrider Pistolier horses as the basis for this conversion. I'm just going to tidy those up and mount them to these oval bases, which actually come in the set. The set is still available as part of the Free Guilds range on the Age of Sigmar section on the Warhammer website, so you can still get these at a fairly reasonable price at the moment as well. I think they're about £21, something like that, on the website in the UK at the time of making this video. So just to clarify as well, I'm only poking fun at the new Attillans. I've not got a massive problem with them. There's a couple of things I don't like. I don't like the comparison, the kind of material on the front of the horses. I think that's a bit of a misfire for me. And I don't really like the head sculpts either, but there's plenty about them to like. And I'm really, really glad that Rough Riders are back on the scene. They've been away for far too long in my view. Some people hate them. I love them. I think they're wonderfully silly, and I think that's what Warhammer 40,000 is all about. So let's crack on and see what we can do. First up, I'm going to take these Scion torsos and just bend the hip armor up a little bit using some pliers. You can actually do that with your fingers as well. They're really, really soft. And if you bend them up just enough, they fit really, really well onto the Outrider legs. And the two armor styles really complement each other. So that's really, really nice. That's an easy part of the conversion. Job done. All right, next up, we're going to need a cavalry sword. Now, this is a regular Scion's power sword, but it's too short. So I'm going to cut it off just above the hilt here with a sharp knife. And then we're left with two different parts. The blade gets thrown into the bits box, and we're left with the arm and the hilt. You need to tidy up the hilt a little bit with a file or a sharp knife because you're going to need nice surfaces to glue together. Now, I've chosen a Terminator sword, a Grey Knight's Terminator sword to be more specific, as my cavalry sword. It's got a bit of extra length to it. It's a bit bigger. I'm going to cut the Space Marine hand off just underneath the hilt there. And I'm also going to tidy the hilt up a little bit because, remember, we've already got a hilt attached to the Scion's arm. We don't want two hilts going on. So I'm just going to clip a few bits off with some hobby snips there. And then I'm actually going to use a little bit of super glue to glue that onto the arm. You'd be well advised to use plastic cement in this particular case because this is a bit of a weak area to glue together. I always use super glue because I like to change my mind and break things apart, but plastic cement would be better here, guys. So just fiddling around with that just to make sure it's nice and straight. And I hope you'll agree later on that when you see the more completed models, that the extra length on this sword really does pay off. It just looks better when the guys are on horseback. So a bit fiddly, but worth doing in my view. Okay, so next up we're talking heads. So we've got a Perry Miniatures Colonial head here, 28mm scale, slightly smaller scale than the Warhammer, and obviously not very compatible with the Warhammer either. So you can see here we put the head in the head socket. It looks just weird and hunched over. It looks a bit like Igor or something. So we're going to attach that onto the rim of the neck area there, and that seems to sort some of the problems out with positioning and with scale. Or at least it does in my view. I'm happy with that. So I'm going to glue that on there. And we're going to do some more with that pistol arm in a minute as well. But you can see underneath the head, we've got a nasty gap, which I'm going to fill in with some milliput later on. So if you want to know how I do that, stay tuned. But the pistol, I'm not too happy with. I don't really like the look of Hell pistols. So we're going to select something more appropriate to the Praetorian theme. And I've chosen to use the kind of 6-shooter type pistols from the Cerberus Raiders kit from the AdMech range. So first of all, we're going to chop off the Hell pistol carefully using a very sharp knife along the top of the hand here, as you see. And then we're also going to chop down through the kind of trigger area, trying to maintain the trigger finger as much as possible. Sharp knife is actually much safer because you're less likely to kind of drop off and cut yourself, but do go careful with these bits and pieces, guys. There we are. So the pistol comes off, goes in the bits box, and we're left with the arm. You're going to need to do some tidying up on that later as well. But first, let's just get that pistol sorted. So this is the pistol, lovely looking thing, like a big old service revolver or something. Just going to chop that off above the hand there, once again using a sharp knife. And we're also going to need to tidy up just around the trigger area in preparation for joining the two parts together. There we are. Just go careful with this. Small little bits off because you can't put stuff back on once you've chopped it off, obviously. Or it's not very easily. So here we are. This is what we're left with. And then we're going to just do some tidying up on the arm there and then join those two bits together. A little bit of super glue for me, but plastic cement is the preferred mode for this type of conversion work. There we are. Much, much better. Much more aligned with the Praetorian theme. Next up, we're going to mash up some milliput and just do a little bit of gap filling. So underneath the neck area here, you could do a much, much better job than me, guys. I'm not a perfectionist when it comes to this sort of thing, but I just mush that down, wet the milliput a little bit, and that hides that gap and makes me feel much better about the conversion. Also, while I'm at it, I do some more gap filling. So you can see here, I've repositioned an arm on this particular rider, and we've got a nasty gap underneath the armpit. So I'm just going to fill that in once again using milliput. And once it's all painted up, you really, really don't notice, especially in areas like that. So I've got a couple of bits to do across the riders there with those type of things. And there you go. Job done. So next up, we're going to have a little look at a standard bearer here, or a flag bearer. I use this baton arm and just reposition it nicely, just you know, simulate a kind of flag holding arm, I guess. And I just chop a little bit off of the arm there just to help me with that repositioning work and glue that on. And we've got a better position, nice raised arm. Good. And then we're going to chop off the top of the baton because we don't need that. And I'm going to tidy that up and actually drill that out with a pin vise. Very careful work here. It's quite fiddly because what I'm going to do is actually put in a little bit of straightened wire to represent the flagpole. All right, so very, very carefully with the drilling. This is straightened wire, just straighten using a drill and a pair of pliers, you know, that old trick. And that gets super glued in to the kind of baton hand like that. A bit of careful attention to alignment because if that is off, that's really going to catch the eye. So just lean that up against something to let it dry. And we've got a flagpole. So the top is like just a top of a standard. And I'm going to put that in like a skull kind of totem there. And that just completes the look nicely. So next up, we need to think about a bugler. A Praetorian regiment cannot go into battle without a bugler. So this is like a trumpet from the Outriders kit. So this is just in the kit that I'm using anyway. I'm not spending any more money here. And I just kind of cut off the hand and the trumpet from the arm. And you need to cut that quite close. And I'm just going to use a scion's arm with a little bit of gauntlet sticking up. It's really useful. Look, you can see that little bit of gauntlet sticking up, and that's going to just mean you can integrate the hand really, really nicely together there. So I'm just going to chop a little bit off behind the gauntlet there with a sharp knife, just so I can get a nicer fit when I glue these two things together. And I'm really, really happy with how this turned out because that's a simple, cheap conversion. You know, I didn't have to use any extra bits to do that. So while I'm finishing off the bugler, let me just thank you all for watching. Please consider liking and sharing as it really does help the channel to grow. And if you've enjoyed the content, please consider subscribing if you're not already subscribed. Yeah, I'm going to throw down some music and put these guys on a rotating platform and, of course, give them a very basic tabletop paint job for you guys. So I hope you enjoy them and please let me know what you think. I love reading all your comments. Thanks ever so much for the support. Cheers.